Hello everybody and welcome to this week's edition of a late night screen review. This week we're talking about BagHead. Oh. Haha.
My dad, he died.
I'm the solicitor at your father's estate.
My dad owned this place. I don't have any memories with him. This is all I have right now.
If you're watching this, then I'm already dead. This property comes with a special tenant. You're the one thing that stands between her and the outside world.
You're joking.
What is that?
Come out, wherever you are.
So BagHead is released in all UK theatres on the 26th of January, so we're a couple of days behind on that one. And is directed by... one Alberto Corredor. So what's the story of this movie? Can't breathe. So this film tells the story of Iris, a young lady who's kind of down on her luck and not doing very well at life at all. She then finds out that her father has died and left her this huge old kind of Victorian pub in his kind of will, sort of. So she inherits this house. So she goes back to this place. She kind of lives there because she's got nowhere else to be. And she finds out that there's something lurking in the basement. What is it? Well, turns out it's some sort of witch / demon that that kind of resides in the basement. It can't leave, or you're not allowed to let it out. It does whatever the owner says. So it's kind of under the control of anybody that signs the deeds. So once you've signed the deeds, you basically inherit a demon. Hooray! And also, good news, this demon, once it kind of swallows something that belongs to a dead person, can bring that person back from the dead, but for only 2 minutes. The downside, after those 2 minutes, the demon takes control and slowly but surely creeps its way into your mind. Who's in control now? The controller or the controllee? That's it. So what did I think of this movie? Back again. So it was interesting for me going to see this film. I didn't know much about it. I think the only thing I'd seen about it was when I went to see, I think it was Night Swim, and there was a trailer for this movie then, and I'd kind of forgotten about it weirdly. The great thing about this film is it's actually a British production, which I was really happy to see. So yeah, I went to my local Cineplex, the Cineworld in Loughborough. It's a brilliant place. Go check it out if you live anywhere near here. It was a small screen. It was about half full, so it was kind of that perfect in-between bit. Was full of lots of teenagers that were squealing and laughing and having a good time, and you know how I feel about those kinds of people. But regardless, what did I kind of get from this movie? Well, for me, this is kind of a mixed bag, and it's good and bad, and it kind of feels a bit of a shame to sort of say that. What I'll say is this film is a kind of indie kind of British film, and I was thinking, oh great, we're going to get, we're going to have something that we can really get our teeth into here. It's going to be dark, psychological, layered, and it wasn't that kind of film, which to me was a bit of a disappointment. What this film is it's kind of a more of a, a UK version of a Blumhouse type horror movie, a kind of standardized Hollywood horror film of, the last 10-15 years. Now, that to you might sound like a really good thing, or that to you might also sound like a really bad thing. And to me, where do I stand? I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. So the kind of film and the way this film is written is just very kind of, I think, simplistically. And in that way, it kind of wastes its premise. And I've said this before about kind of Blumhousey and horror movies. I kind of felt that way about Night Swim, where it had a really cool premise, a really good setup, and then kind of doesn't do enough with it. And not that it doesn't do anything with it, just in my personal taste, just doesn't do that, just doesn't go quite far enough. The kind of setup for this film and the idea behind the creature is really cool. Having a creature with its own lore and kind of mythos is always really interesting for me. They're the best kind of creatures and monsters. So, there's a witch, it's locked in this basement, it's not allowed to leave. Once you sign your name on the deed, you own that demon, you own that witch, and she has to obey your every word. Only to a certain point. And she can also bring people back from the dead. So once you give, like say, a ring or something like that, the witch will take it, swallow it, and it becomes that person, but only for 2 minutes. After the 2 minutes has elapsed, the demon starts to creep into your mind. So what you have to do then is put the bag on and leave. And obviously, the least interaction you have with this witch, the kind of least likely you are to have your mind taken over. It's a bit like a kind of, almost like a metaphor for drugs and a drug habit. So that's a kind of really cool premise. And you can think of really dark, kind of psychologically invasive kind of sequences that could go along with that movie. You could make it really in-depth and interesting. You could really get under your skin. And the filmmakers just decided not to do that. They decided to make a more kind of straight line horror narrative, again, a la kind of Blumhouseian kind of film. And that was kind of disappointing to me. I was kind of let down by the premise. There were a couple of really cool sequences in this film with the creature, with the people that get brought back, because obviously this does happen on a couple of occasions throughout the film, that people get brought back from the dead and people are trying to communicate with them. And you're watching the timer to make sure that 2 minutes hasn't elapsed. And all that's really good stuff. It just doesn't do enough with it. For me, it's kind of hit and miss, because was it interesting? Was it engaging? Was it fun? Yeah, to a certain extent. But was it also trope-ridden? Was it very like jump scare, rah, loud noise? Yeah, it was that as well. So, and again, that was kind of a shame for me, because I wanted a bit more meat on the bone for this movie, and it just doesn't deliver on that. There are a couple of cool sequences. The monster's interesting. There are a couple of cool performances. But what I will say about the acting in this movie is that the main father, because when we come into the story, the dad of the main character, Iris, her father has possession of this house and keeps the mother and daughter away so they don't get involved. Sort of a la Egon Spengler from the latest Ghostbuster movie. A bit like that. Again, a phone call. But regardless of that, he's a really good actor. He's a really cool character actor. And a lot of the actors that play the people that are brought back from the dead, they're really interesting and really like kind of creepy and mournful and all that good stuff. But unfortunately for me, the letdowns are on the main two characters. They're just kind of, one of them overacts and one of them underacts. And the actress that plays Iris, she was also she also played the character of Ciri in the Witcher films. She just doesn't deliver enough. For me, I just don't think she can hold the movie on her own. She's just not quite ready yet, in my personal opinion. There's not much of a character there. There's not much depthful narrative, kind of emotive kind of things that come from it. You don't really, it's really hard to latch onto her as a main character. As a side character, she might have worked, but as a lead in a movie, to me, she just doesn't kind of cut the mustard on this movie. And again, that's a shame, because there's a plot here. There's a well-mined kind of cool story to mine from here, and they just missed the mark on a couple of things. So I wasn't that kind of in love with the Iris character, the main character. Like I say, the narrative is just straight down the line. If you've seen any horror films before, you've seen this movie. You can guess all the plot twists. You can guess what's going to happen. And they tend to, apart from on a couple of occasions, tend to take the simplest plot route that they possibly can. As again, not always, but there are a couple of occasions where there were some genuine kind of like, oh, cool. Oh, that's a twist. That's something. That's interesting. Yeah, great. But there just wasn't enough of it for me. So it's not a complete kind of, I didn't hate the movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I can't really highly recommend this movie. As I say, for me, great premise, great monster, some great side characters. It's well shot. It looks great, this film. The cinematographer does love a slow pan in, though. There's quite a lot of that going on quite a lot of the time to kind of build up tension when, again, you could maybe do that a little bit more interestingly if you're a bit more of a seasoned director. But regardless of that, other than that, they're the good points. You know, the lead actress I wasn't that great with. The kind of story's a lot more kind of just basic and simplistic. But other than that, it's an entertaining watch. If you're a Blumhouse fan, you're going to absolutely love this film. If you're kind of a general cinema goer, horror film viewer, you're going to probably find a lot to be entertained by in this movie. If you're a hardcore horror fan, if you wanted something a bit more gritty with a bit more meat on the bones and a bit more psychological, you might kind of feel a bit kind of left wanting with this film, is what I would say. I enjoyed it, but I wanted a bit more from it. That's all I'm going to say. So it's not a high recommend, but it is a recommend from me. And that's my review for BagHead. Yeah, all right, but, you know, maybe in the sequel they can do a bit more with it. I don't know. Who's to say? But that's it for this week's review, guys. It's BagHead. It was all right, but it just needed a bit of a kick up the arse. A bit more meat on the bone. That's it, really. So until next week, guys, stay safe, stay scared, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye.